Hello, my name is Alex. I am 22 years old. I live in a tiny, pleasant community just outside of Seattle. I work part time at an auto shop while finishing my final year of college. My life is very normal, I suppose. I have wonderful friends, a decent work, a mother who worries much too much, and a lot of minor ambitions like traveling, owning a house one day, and possibly starting my own business. There's one thing and one person in my life who is anything from normal. Her name is Claire. Claire is my mother's friend, not a childhood pal or someone from long ago. They have only known each other for nearly 4 years. She's 46, only a few years younger than my mother, and to be honest, I think that's what helped me see her differently. She began visiting our house when I was about 18 years old. I remember the first time I saw her. She exuded energy, effortless confidence, and friendliness. I couldn't stop looking at her. At first, I convinced myself I was being stupid. How could I ever think like that? She's my mother's friend. But over time, I knew it wasn't just a crush. I admired her. Everything about her. Her sense of humor, her strength, her kindness, and the way she dealt with life's challenges. Claire has gotten married 3 times. Neither of them worked out. She sometimes talks about it in a casual, almost funny tone, as if she doesn't want anyone to feel sorry for her. She cannot bear children. I understand how much anguish that must have given her, but she never shows it. She often thinks that life is too short to spend it worrying about what may have been. That's simply who she is. No matter how difficult things were, she maintained a cheerful attitude and worked hard to lift others around her. And I just sat there listening intently to every word. I was so impressed by the way she talked about life, her trips, her mistakes, and lessons that it worried me. I began to notice everything about her. Her eyes would light up as she laughed, and her smile would leave small wrinkles around them. Her movements were elegant even when she was simply preparing coffee in our kitchen. I fell hard for her, and no matter how hard I tried to tell myself not to, I couldn't stop. I knew I was in deep. I found myself thinking about her at strange times, rehashing talks in my thoughts, and wondering what she did when she wasn't at our house. But I never said anything. I was scared of damaging everything. I kept convincing myself that you were just imagining things, Alex. She does not perceive you this way. Do not be an idiot. Then came the night that would change everything. Claire had been over to have supper with my mother as she did every couple of weeks. They joked and discussed work recipes and odd gossip. I scarcely said anything. I just watched her calmly admiring how she filled the room with her enthusiasm. When it became late, she stood up and left. My mother was busy cleaning up the kitchen, so I offered to escort Claire to the door. My heart raced the entire time. I kept thinking, don't say anything. Simply say goodnight and go away. But once we reached the door, I couldn't stop myself. I'm not even sure where the courage came from. Maybe I got tired of faking. Perhaps I couldn't take it anymore. I looked at her and whispered softly, "You look lovely tonight." Claire froze for a split second. She glanced at me and I thought I had made a huge mistake. Then she gently grinned. The type of smile that seems tailor-made for you. She leaned closer and murmured, "You're braver than I thought." I did not move. I did not speak. I just stood there, absolutely stunned. That single sentence seemed like a door had opened. Was she teasing me? Did she understand how I felt, or was it simply an innocent remark? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. I stopped imagining the link. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. What exactly did she mean? Was that her way of expressing she noticed me too? Was this my final chance I knew I had to find out, and I knew the next step was up to me? I could not sleep that night. I continued playing her words over and over again. You are bolder than I thought. What exactly did she mean? Was it merely a fun comment? Or had she noticed me in the same manner that I had noticed her for years? My heart and head were in conflict. For the next 2 days, I avoided walking into the kitchen while my mother was on the phone. I was afraid she'd mention Claire and I wasn't prepared to deal with it. I even began to doubt myself, convinced that I had dreamed everything but I couldn't let it go. Something deep inside me told me the moment meant something and that Claire was waiting for me to eventually speak up. I spent the entire evening drafting a message on my phone, erasing and rewriting it, looking at the screen for hours. I knew I couldn't just ask her out straight away. That would be overly aggressive and hazardous. If she rejected me, I wouldn't be able to look her or my mother in the eyes again. So I made a plan. I penned a casual message as if it were intended for someone else. Hello, are you available for coffee sometime this week? I stared at the text for a while, my thumb hanging above the send button. If she ignored it or said no, I could simply brush it off as a mistake. But with my pulse racing, I eventually sent it, hoping she would say yes. I stared at the screen like a lunatic. The seconds seemed like hours. 10 minutes have passed, nothing, then 15. My chest tightened. You fool. What were your thoughts? Then something happened. My phone vibrated. I almost dropped it while picking it up. Sure, let me know which day works best for you. I looked at it shocked. I must have read it 20 times before believing it was true. She had answered yes. The following few days were torturous. I wanted to message her right away, but I forced myself to wait a few hours to avoid appearing needy. We decided to meet on a Saturday afternoon in a little coffee shop 2 towns over. Nobody from our neighborhood would recognize us. Saturday came and I arrived early. I sat at the window nervously tapping my fingers against my coffee cup as I watched each car pull into the parking lot. I didn't know what to anticipate. I kept wondering, what if she changed her mind? What if all of this was a huge mistake? But then I spotted her. Claire got out of her car wearing jeans and a basic top. She looked as effortlessly lovely as she always does. She walked in, noticed me immediately, and smiled. That same warm, knowing smile had been haunting my nightmares all week. She sat across from me and nonchalantly brushed her hair behind her ear. I was wondering if you'd go along with it, she teased. I grinned hesitantly, my palms sweating. I was unsure if you'd turn up. She looked directly into my eyes. I knew I would. I just needed to know if you were actually going to ask me. I laughed awkwardly, relieved but afraid at the same moment. The talk started slowly. We discussed safe topics such as the weather throughout our first day of school. I informed her that I was finishing up my degree and working at the business. She told me about her new hobby, photography, but after about 20 minutes she leaned over slightly and said, "Do you really think I didn't notice how you looked at me?" I froze and my face flushed. What? She smiled gently, not mocking, but understanding. Alex, we ladies know these things. You cannot hide it from us. I have known for a long time. I swallowed hard. My heart pounded in my ears. I apologize if this made you uncomfortable. I never wanted to cross any lines. She softly waved her hand to get me to stop. You did not. That is why I never said anything. I did not want to embarrass you or complicate matters between myself and your mother. But I am here now, aren't I? I stared at her speechless. I had fantasized about this moment and practiced 100 things I would say if it actually happened. But now my mind went blank. I couldn't keep it to myself any longer. I eventually blurted out. I tried to ignore it to convince myself that it was foolish. But I genuinely like you, Claire. I have done so for quite some time. Her expression softened and she stretched out delicately to brush my hand across the table. I know Alex and I like you too. You're lovely, genuine, and fearless. We sat calmly smiling at each other. For the first time in years, the tension between us had subsided. It was no longer an unspoken or impossible secret. It was real. As we walked out of the coffee shop, she paused and gave me a serious look. I'm not promising anything. We are in new area here. We need to be cautious, but I'm willing to see where this leads if you are. I nodded without hesitation. I am, she said, smiling. Good. Then let's take things one day at a time. The stroll back to my car felt as light as air. For the first time, I allowed myself to believe that anything meaningful could occur between us. I knew there would be hurdles, questions, and risks, but I didn't mind. I was finally where I had longed to be for so long by her side. The next few days following our coffee meeting were the longest of my life. I could not concentrate on anything, my schoolwork, and even my buddies. My thoughts kept straying back to Claire. The way she smiled at me across the small table, the way her fingers brushed over mine casually yet intentionally. I kept wondering if it was all real or just a beautiful dream that I didn't want to wake up from. I didn't want to push her or scare her away, but I also didn't want to waste the opportunity that had taken me 4 years to secure. I kept reliving her comments in my mind. We need to be cautious, but I'm willing to see where this goes. So I waited 2 to 3 days. On the fourth day of my breakup, I texted her. Simple. Hello, I hope you're having a good day. I was wondering if you wanted to meet up again. There is no pressure, simply go for a walk or drink coffee. The reply arrived 15 minutes later. What about a walk tomorrow afternoon? I have a favorite park about 20 minutes outside of town. Nobody ever goes there. I smiled so fiercely that my face hurt. The next afternoon, I got to the park early. It was hidden behind some old trees on a little lake. Quiet, serene, almost too good to be true. I stood near the lake, nervously bouncing my knee until I heard her car door close. I looked around and saw her approaching me, wearing pants, a light jacket, and that usual welcoming smile. We started strolling side by side without conversing at first. It was a comforting silence. I stole looks at her when I assumed she wasn't looking. Finally, she broke the stillness. I almost didn't come, she said quietly. Why, I inquired. Because it's complicated, Alex. I'm not some random woman you met at a bar. I'm your mother's friend. There is a lot at stake. I stopped walking and softly took her hand. She stiffened for a time before relaxing. Claire, I understand. I've thought about it 1,000 times. I'm not stupid. I recognize that this is risky and that some people may not understand, but I also know how I feel about you and I believe you feel the same way or you would not be here. She exhaled and clasped my hand. You're correct. I would not. We kept walking. I asked her about her photography. She told me about her recent vacation to the shore and how much she enjoyed capturing the waves breaking against the cliffs. I told her about school and how I was considering changing majors but wasn't sure what I wanted yet. It seemed so natural and simple. At one point, we paused to sit on a seat near the water. The sun was sinking, creating a golden glow across the lake. Claire gazed out across the sea, lost in concentration. She stated you'd grown up a lot. When I first met you, you were a bashful kid just out of high school. I never expected to be sitting here with you. I'm glad you are, I answered without thinking. She grinned and shook her head. You are quite brave, Alex. There it was again. Brave. That word had somehow transformed into our private signal. We waited there for what seemed like hours. She eventually got up and brushed off her clothes. I should go. I rose up, not wanting the moment to end. Claire? I hesitated. Can we see you again? She looked at me for a long time before responding. Yes, but with one condition. We keep this between us? No one knows? Not yet. I understand. She leaned in close enough for me to smell the faint scent of her perfume and whispered, Good. I adore having something that is uniquely ours. My pulse raced as I walked her back to her car. She turned and smiled as she entered. Text me tomorrow. I watched her drive away feeling as if I were flying. I knew what we were doing was risky, maybe dangerous, but I didn't care. I just knew I wanted to see her again. Over the next few weeks, our meetings grew increasingly regular. We'd meet in unexpected places like a little bookstore downtown, a quiet hiking trail, or even on a drive to the mountains where we'd sit in her car and talk for hours. Every time we said our goodbyes, I wanted to kiss her, but I didn't. I was frightened of upsetting the fine balance we had. One night while I was walking her to her car after supper, she stopped me. Alex, yes. She stared at me in the warm glimmer of the streetlight. I know what you're asking. I froze. What, she smiled. Do you want to kiss me? I swallowed hard. Yes, she moved closer, her voice gentle but steady. Not yet. Soon, I promise. My heart was hammering, but I nodded nonetheless. Okay. She gently stroked her fingertips along my jawline for a little while. You are bolder than I thought. With that, she drove away, leaving me startled and breathless. I knew then that whatever was going on between us was real. It was occurring, and I would do whatever it needed to keep it safe. The next few weeks were the most strange of my life. Claire and I had settled into an unspoken groove. Text messages were sent late at night, short phone calls were made when we knew my mother wouldn't be around, and impromptu plans were made to meet somewhere we wouldn't be recognized. I lived for those moments. My phone would buzz when I was sitting in class or working on a car at the shop. Are you available tonight, or can we meet at our usual location? My heart would immediately race. I'd drop everything only to see her smile again, hear her laugh, and feel the flame that only she could ignite in me. Claire proposed an unusual idea one Friday evening. Let's go out of town for the night, she said. I know a small coastal motel. Quiet, no one will recognize us. I gazed at the message, struggling to breathe. It felt like a line was about to be crossed, but I was prepared. I typed back, "Tell me where you're going and I'll be there." I traveled 2 hours over twisty seaside roads, my palms sweating the whole time. The modest motel was situated on a bluff overlooking the ocean. It wasn't fancy, yet it was intimate and ideal. I parked and sat in the car, attempting to calm my nerves. When I eventually got out, Claire was already resting against her car, dressed in jeans and a lovely black sweater, her hair blowing gently in the breeze. She grinned pleasantly. "You made it." I nodded, too startled to talk. We walked together to check in. The lady at the desk did not even look up as she handed us the keys. It was as if the cosmos had granted us permission to be here, if only for one night. The room was modest but nice. One queen bed and a window overlooking the ocean. The sound of waves crashing on the shore below. Claire left her overnight bag by the door and sat on the edge of the bed, kicking off her shoes. I stood awkwardly beside the window. I admitted that I had never done anything like this before. She offered me a gentle, knowing smile. Neither have I. We got takeout and ate it on the bed, laughing at how terrible the meal was, but how beautiful the night still felt. We spoke for hours about everything. Her broken marriage represents the pain of being unable to bear children, my hopes for the future, and how terrified I was of losing her if anyone found out. As the night progressed, the discussion slowed. The room became quieter and the soothing sound of the water filled the silence. Claire laid her glass on the nightstand and stared at me intently. "Alex," she spoke quietly, "I want you to know something. I've experienced a lot in my life. I've loved and been injured, and I've experienced more loss than I ever imagined possible. I do not want anything weighty or difficult right now. I just want to appreciate whatever it is between us, no matter how long it lasts." I nodded, fully knowing. "I'm not asking for promises, Claire. I just want to be with you, even if only for now." She smiled and slowly reached out for my hand. "Come here." I sat near her, hammering heart. She softly brushed my hair back from my face. Her fingertips are gentle and warm. "You're a good man, Alex," she whispered. "You've given me what I thought was lost forever. The sensation of being valued for who I am rather than who someone else wants me to be." That was the moment we crossed the line we had been teetering between for weeks. We kissed softly at first, then deeper, as weeks of tension and need faded into the sound of waves outside our windows. I will not tell you what happened after that. Some things belong to the people who inhabit them. All I know is that it wasn't about passion or rebellion. It was about connection, comfort, and something that felt painfully genuine and correct in a world that would never understand. The next morning, we awoke tangled together beneath beautiful white blankets. The sunshine seeped through the thin curtains, creating golden patterns on her exposed shoulder. I just stared at her, trying to remember every aspect, fearful this would be the last time I had something so lovely. But the moment she opened her eyes and smiled at me, I knew it couldn't be. We checked out early, scarcely communicating, both knowing we were returning to reality. She drew me into a strong embrace before we parted ways. "This doesn't change anything," she muttered. "We still need to be vigilant. Nobody can know Alex. I cannot have your mother or anyone else find out. I'm not prepared for that. Are you okay with that?" I gripped her tightly. "I'm more than fine. I will keep our secret, whatever it takes." She gently kissed my cheek and smiled. "Good. Then we keep it ours." As I watched her drive away down the seaside road, I realized that I had no idea where this would lead. There were no labels, guarantees, or expectations. But I also realized I'd never been happy. The drive home from the seaside was lengthy and quiet. I did not switch on the radio. I did not call anyone. I merely drove, peering at the winding road ahead. The sound of the tires hitting the road, as well as the vision of Claire's warm grin, remained with me. I knew life was about to become even more complex. We had passed an uncrossable line. And while I didn't regret a moment of it, I knew we couldn't stay in that lovely little bubble indefinitely. Reality awaited us when we returned home. For the next few days, we maintained our distance. It was not intended. Neither of us said anything. It's just happened. We texted modest things like, "I hope you are having a good day. I miss you. Stay safe." However, we both realized we needed time to comprehend what had just happened. I found myself wondering how things would be if I saw her again. Would this be awkward? Would she come to regret it? Will she pull away? Then about a week later, I received a message. "Are you free tonight? Can we speak?" I drove to her home after dusk. My heart raced the entire time. When I pulled into her driveway, the porch light was turned off. The home was peaceful. I texted her and the door opened nearly immediately. Claire stood there in basic lounge clothes, her hair tied up and no makeup. She'd never looked more stunning. "Come in," she murmured quietly. I got inside and we went to the kitchen. She brought me a glass of water and leaned up against the counter. Arms full to the eyeballs, serious yet tender. "We need to speak, Alex," I nodded. "I understand." She took a deep breath. "I do not regret what occurred, not for 1 second. But we cannot let this spiral out of control. If anyone finds out, including your mother, my friends, and the people of this town, it will be disastrous for both of us. They will not comprehend. They'll twist it into something horrible, which I don't want for you or me." "I understand," I answered gently. "I've been thinking about it too." She came closer and grasped my hands in hers. "I want to continue seeing you. I want this, Alex, but only if you're willing to keep it between ourselves. There are no public dates. There will be no slip-ups. There is no need to inform friends or family. I understand it's a hefty ask, but I need to safeguard my life, my privacy, and you." I looked her directly in the eyes and uttered the only thing I knew to be true. "I don't care about labels. I don't care if nobody else knows. I simply want to be with you, even if it means keeping it a secret." She smiled the gentle, thankful smile that I've fallen in love with. "You are bolder than I thought." We both laughed gently, realizing how those words had started everything. That night, we did not breach any lines. We sat on her couch, side by side, talking about her failed marriages, my post-college goals, books, movies, and childhood memories. It was simple. That was enough. Over the next 6 months, we mastered our secret. We met at out-of-town diners, parks where no one we knew ever went, and her house late at night while my mother was working late shifts. We never stayed for long. We were always wary. Sometimes we'd just sit in her car parked near the shore, holding hands and watching the waves. We would go for long walks beneath the stars, talking about everything and nothing. I had moments when I wanted to tell the entire world how I felt about her. I used to detest sneaking about and pretending I didn't know her when she came to visit my mother at our place. But every time I started to question, Claire would look at me, grip my hand, and say, "This is ours. Nobody can take it from us." We never formed long-term plans. We never discussed the future. We were both aware that what we had was fragile like glass, beautiful and precious, but easily broken if we were not cautious. I recall pulling over and turning off the engine one night after we had spent a lovely evening traveling around the countryside. The automobile sat in full darkness, save for the faint moonlight through the windshield. I went to her and asked, "Do you think this will last?" She looked out at the fields for a long time before responding. "I do not know. I haven't thought in forever, Alex. I've learned that life never offers you exactly what you expect. All I know is that I'm happy right now." "Are you in?" I smiled. "Yes, I am." "Then let's simply be in the moment. That is all that matters." So that is what we did. We remained in the moment. There were no expectations or guarantees, just two people who had discovered something true under the most improbable of circumstances. Nobody knows for sure even today. Not my mother, not my friends, not our coworkers, just us. We are still not sure what the future holds. Perhaps someday we'll go public. Perhaps we won't. Maybe this will persist for years, or maybe it will stop quietly just like it started. But I don't think about it anymore. She taught me to appreciate what I have right now. And every time I see her, every time we exchange a hidden gaze, every time she brushes her fingers against mine when no one is looking, I am reminded of that first moment at the door when she smiled and said, "You are braver than I imagined." Alex and Claire's story reminds us that true bravery is accepting our true sentiments even if the rest of the world doesn't understand. At 22, Alex, a college student with a tranquil life, had a profound admiration for Claire, his mother's vivacious 46-year-old acquaintance. Despite the age difference and societal hazards, his bold statement, "You look beautiful tonight," sparked a connection that evolved into a covert, heartfelt attachment. Their secret moments, from seaside getaways to late-night discussions, demonstrate that love and connection do not require society's permission to be genuine. Alex's courage in confessing his thoughts, as well as Claire's willingness to try something new, and encourage us to listen to our hearts even when we are afraid of being judged. Their story is about cherishing what feels right in the moment rather than rejecting rules for the sake of rebelling. In a world that is quick to label and divide, Alex and Claire encourage us to take risks for the connections that make us feel alive to prioritize the present over the what ifs. Life's most beautiful moments typically occur when we dare to be vulnerable, believing that authenticity will guide us. How did Alex and Claire's story educate you about courage and love? Please share your opinions in the comment section. I am interested to hear them. If you were moved by this tale, please subscribe and join our community to receive more inspiring and connecting stories. Let us keep following what is real together.